Go through the steps when starting protection training with your dog. Before starting any dog into protection training, it is extremely important to have your dog examined by your vet to ensure your dog is healthy enough to perform the training. Once you have determined your dog has a healthy overall report, now we can start training. We are going to go through some easy steps into starting a dog in protection training. The first step in protection training is to build the dog's overall defensive drive to protect the surrounding area near the dog and owner. You will need the following equipment before you start: a leash and flat collar, a harness, this will the dog the freedom to use its shoulders and neck, a decoy or helper, the decoy should be a stranger, preferred a male. Men are more intimidating to dogs, so this will help agitate the dog's behavior to protect. A bamboo stick, whip, and mask. The bamboo stick makes an agitating noise that causes the dog to become aggressive. The whip simulates the sound of gunfire when used properly, which is a great agitation tool. And the mask will conceal the decoy's face, making them look weird and spook the dog. These are all good agitation equipment to help stimulate the dog aggressive drive. Next, have the dog placed on leash facing the decoy with the owner holding the leash near a corner, with the owner's back towards the wall if possible. This will give the dog the mindset of fight or flight. Fight or flight is where you know if your dog does or does not the ability to perform protection training. The decoy should be someone the dog has never met. The decoy should display an aggressive behavior towards the dog and owner. The decoy main job is to agitate the dog, making the dog show its aggressive side, while using fast movements, holding a stick or weapon-like material. Once the dog begins barking at the decoy, the owner should praise the dog. Praise is very important by the owner. Without proper praise, the dog will stop working effectively, making it harder to build drive. Like patting the dog on the back and saying, "Good boy" or "Good girl." The dog will need the positive reinforcement to continue to challenge the decoy while standing its ground, fending off the decoy. This is the beginning of building a defensive drive into the dog. All protection work starts with building a good defensive drive. The decoy should never get more than 5 feet close to the dog while agitating the dog. The decoy should allow the dog to win the challenge by moving away from the dog every time the dog begins to push forward towards the decoy. Now you have built the dog's overall defensive drive, we can start bite development with your dog. You will need several dog biting equipment for this session. You will need a soft puppy sleeve that will be easy on your dog's mouth so they can develop a full grip when biting. A bite tug helps, which will stimulate the dog's prey drive to chase and catch. A tie-down leash to hold the dog in one area, not allowing the dog to run freely about during training. Now let's begin. Have the dog leashed to a pole, a tree, or an object they cannot move away from in the training area. Have the leash connected to the dog's harness. Bungee leashes are perfect for this portion of training. It gives the dog the tension of pulling forward during training, and the mobility of to move. Have the owner connect another leash to the flat collar around the dog's neck. Then have the owner stand on the right or left side of the dog holding the leash connected to the collar. Remove any other training collars like prong collars or e-collars to prevent injuries to the dog. The decoy should be holding the soft bite sleeve towards the dog's face while agitating the dog to become aggressive to bite. Once the dog bites the sleeve, the decoy should begin a game of tug-of-war with the dog. This is called push and pull method, push forward and pull backwards with the dog, never side to side, shaking the dog's head. The owner should praise the dog while the dog is biting the sleeve, encouraging the dog to bite harder and fight harder. You will not give the dog any release command at this point of training. The decoy should give the dog the sleeve, allowing the dog to win the fight. Remember, you are developing a nice firm strong bite in this phase of training. If the decoy chicken wings the bite sleeve from side to side, the dog will lose grip and develop a sloppy bite. A sloppy bite will lead to injuries down the road once you begin working on bite suits. At this stage, the decoy should begin giving the dog slight bamboo taps on the back while the dog is biting to stimulate the dog to bite harder. It is very important at this stage of training to introduce sounds of blank guns and other loud noises. Once the dog has developed a nice firm full bite and doesn't release while being tapped with the bamboo stick, you are ready to move to the next phase of training. Now we are ready for offensive bite work. There are several tools you will need for this portion of training. Full bite suit for the decoy. a 15-foot long leash, and a harness for the dog. The owner should attach the long leash to the dog's harness. The decoy should begin agitating the dog by tapping his shoulder or leg with the bamboo stick. This is calling the dog to come bite the decoy on the arm or leg. The owner should release the dog, as the decoy is running past the dog, encouraging the dog to chase and bite the decoy. The decoy should be running away from the dog in a natural state. Never have the decoy stand still, facing the dog and not moving. Unless you are walking the dog up to the decoy and placing the dog on the bite. Once the decoy has gotten bitten, he should stop running and push and pull with the dog, driving the dog backwards. Gunfire simulation is very helpful when angering the dog to bite harder during this phase of training. Using the long leash to recall the dog back to owner, so the dog begins to understand when it is called, they will run back to the owner and not in other directions. This is called offensive bite work, sending the dog to the threat. If your dog lacks the ability to display prey drive, you will have a lot of problems in this portion of training. This is level 1 protection work, how to start a protection and how to properly work your protection dog in training. Remember, at each phase of this training, you must allow the dog to win, so they are encouraged to continue training. If your decoy lacks the ability to make noises, become animated during training, if possible the dog will not be stimulated enough to bite or chase. The dog is stimulated into the training by the decoy along with the owner. This is very important. You are stimulating the dog into defense. I hope this information was helpful to your efforts in training a protection dog.